And if you do buy mixed materials, try to remove the mixed material to ensure that it's going to get recycled. So now this has a much greater chance of being recycled because it's not a mixed material anymore. We've separated the materials. Hi, I'm Ari.
And I'm Jessica from Adventures in Waste.
And we're here to tell you 10 ways that you've been recycling wrong. The first tip is to try to reduce your plastic to begin with, because since the creation of plastic, only 9% has actually been recycled.
Yeah, and even if we were able to recycle all of it, and most of it is not getting recycled, there's just way too much of it to begin with. So if all the infrastructure was in place, we're creating way too much. So we need to create less of it and reuse as much as possible so we don't have to try to recycle it. Tip number 2, don't rely on bioplastics, those things that look like plastic but they're made out of plants and say that they're compostable, to replace plastics. A lot of places aren't actually able to compost this in the existing infrastructure. If you put them in your green container, it's probably not going to go to a high heat facility to break down. And a lot of those high heat facilities don't want them in the first place because it takes too long for them to actually break down in those high heat facilities. So some people are like, oh, I'm gonna switch over to a bioplastic compostable cup because if it gets into the ocean, it's not plastic and it will break down, but it needs heat to break down. So if it gets into the ocean, it's not gonna break down.
Just have a reusable option instead. That's always the better choice. So many plastics have an RIC code on the bottom, which is the chasing arrow symbol at the bottom, and it's numbered 1 through 7. But you can check with your city or waste hauler to see what plastics they actually accept, because even though there's a chasing arrow recycle symbol on something, doesn't mean that your city actually accepts it to be recycled.
Yeah, and just because there's a chasing arrows on it, say it's just anywhere on the package, there's no regulation that says you can't just slap a recycle sign on something. If you slap it on there and then say the thing is recyclable, the Federal Trade Commission says you have to say what part of it's recyclable, where it's recyclable, that sort of thing. But really, just because it has a recycle sign on it or chasing arrows, doesn't
Anyone can put that on anything.
Tip 4, clean out your plastics. Some places will say they need it spotless. Some cities will say that they can take a little tiny bit of contamination. If you have an item that is recyclable in your city, make sure that there's no food in it. No food, no liquids allowed.
For example, if you have a peanut butter container and you don't clean out the peanut butter, that container is probably not going to get recycled because it's a contaminant.
A contaminant is anything that makes a product non-recyclable. It could be food, it could be mixed materials, it could be other materials stuck to it that weren't supposed to be in it, but something that makes the value of that product, the value, its recyclable value, lessen.
Tip number 5, don't stuff items into other items. So if you have a beer bottle, if you stuff a lime wedge into the beer bottle, chances are that bottle won't get recycled now because it's considered a contaminant.
And here with the plastic bottle, sometimes it's fun. We're like, we take the labels off and we shove the label in and maybe there's something else and we shove that in there and we think that, oh, it will still get recycled. It's a water bottle, but all of that stuff is not the same chemical resin as the bottle, so it's seen as a contaminant. And with the glass, maybe it will break and they recycle it, the glass when it's broken, and they might be able to get out that lime or whatever you've put in there. But truthfully, if you want to keep it valuable, don't put anything inside of it that you can't remove. Tip number 6, don't put electronics and batteries and cords and all that sort of thing in your recycling or your trash because these have hazardous material in them. The issue with batteries is that they can actually explode. So if they go into a truck, the trash truck sometimes picks it up, the truck is compressing the material on a consistent basis, and it can actually cause truck fires. However, it's good to go onto your city website and find where you can drop off this material, if they have events where you can drop it off, if there are drop-off locations, maybe there's an electronics store that you can, or a home improvement store where you can drop off some of these items. And then also with the cords, if they go into the recycling, what's called the materials recovery facility or the recycling facility, it is like bells and whistles and just mechanics galore, and this stuff just gets wrapped up into that system and they have to stop everything and pull it out. So we definitely don't want this in any of our waste streams.
Tip number 7, when you're at the store deciding what products you're gonna buy, try to avoid products that have mixed materials. And by mixed materials, we mean things that have multiple materials in the packaging. For example, this is aluminum, but then it's covered with like this plastic sleeve. So that makes it a contaminant and it's not gonna get recycled. And if you do buy mixed materials, try to remove the mixed material to ensure that it's gonna get recycled. So now this has a much greater chance of being recycled because it's not a mixed material anymore. We've separated the materials.
If it's imprinted on here, they're expecting the ink to be maybe a 5% contamination, the people who actually recycle the cans. And now with this sleeve on here, it becomes maybe a 20 or 30% contamination, and it reduces the value of this product. Then you have products like maybe a water bottle or sometimes alternative milks will have a sleeve that goes on their plastic packaging, a sleeve that goes all the way down. This sleeve is a different type of plastic than the actual bottle. And so it's hard to read that this is a #1 water bottle, pull it off the line. It's another layer of contamination, and they have to take that into consideration.
And also remember that recycling is an industry, and if you can't make money off of the recycling, it's not gonna get recycled. No one's gonna buy it. So this makes a product less valuable, and so the chances of it not being recycled increase.
Tip number 8, try to buy bulk as much as possible, because a lot of the times the packaging that items are coming in potentially is non-recyclable. If it's not available in the bulk section, maybe buy in a package that is larger than buying it in smaller little packages, because here's the hint. If it crinkles, makes this sound, it is probably a mixed materials, and we need to minimize our consumption of it as much as possible.
Because this is basically would go to landfill.
Yeah,
like you wouldn't put this in recycling. Tip number 9, try to opt for reusable rags and wipes, because these wipes are not recyclable, and often they can damage plumbing. Flushable wipes aren't actually flushable, and they've caused millions of dollars of damage in many city sewer systems.
Don't put them anywhere except the landfill container. The other thing is that don't compost them either. This one in particular has chemicals on it. It also is, the way that it's durable is a lot, oh, I can't even tear it. Yeah, and you can see it. There's total plastic fibers in here. Definitely don't put it in your organics container. Don't compost it at home because there's plastic in these. And then even with the facial tissues, sometimes they have plastic, sometimes they don't. But if they're really, really soft and like have that oily texture to them, there's chemicals and there's potentially plastic in them as well. So, please. Tip number 10, vote. Vote for what it is that you want. If there are politicians who are working on plastics legislation, vote for them. When there are pieces of legislation coming up in your city or in your state, vote for it. Because you can be a conscious consumer and you can reduce waste as much as possible in your own house. But in order for us to make a larger difference, we gotta make sure that everyone is behind it and that there is legislation and political pull to make sure that reduction actually happens.
I'm Ari.
And I am Jessica.
And those were 10 ways that you're recycling wrong. And you know, not wrong, just like how you can do better.